Welcome to Installation and Configuration, a module of the Wavelink e-learning training course on Velocity, and specifically the Velocity client. Each time you want to move forward to the next slide, click anywhere on the slide to continue, or click on the forward arrow that is shown here. The Velocity client installation and configuration module will guide you through getting the client working on your smart device. To start off, we will step through the different ways of installing the client. Next, we will break down how to get the client licensed to be used in production. After that, we will learn some basic configuration options such as creating, editing, and deleting host profiles, as well as the most important profile settings to connect to all different kinds of emulation hosts. Once connected, you will see how Velocity redefines how a user will look and use an emulation client. Let's discuss the installation of the Velocity client. First, the client has minimum system requirements for its execution. The major requirement is that the device at a minimum has Android OS 4.1, which is Jelly Bean, and an API level of 16 or above. If you meet the minimum requirements, all subsequent releases of Androids should be supported. Please be aware, since Wavelink does not create the operating systems, there could be an interval of time between the OS release of Android and the Velocity client support. The next step in the installation process of the Velocity client is to manually install the client, use the Avalanche management platform, or use a third-party MDM. Let's look at the manual install. To start, we must place a copy of the Velocity client install file onto the smart device. There are multiple methods planned that will get the install file loaded onto the mobile device. If a QR code is available and the device is configured to allow installation of non-market applications, just scan the code or the URL to download and install the application. If you have access to a browser, you can also go to the Wavelink's download page and select the Velocity client. If you do not have access, your last option is to download the Velocity client to a PC and make a connection between the PC and the smart device. Copy the file onto the smart device for installation. Once the Velocity client install file resides on the smart device, locate the file and then execute the install with a tap. Android will tell you what system access the install file needs. If you agree to give the access, tap Install. The Velocity client will now be installed on the mobile device. When it is finished, you will see a check mark next to the app installed on the smart device screen. Tap Done if you want to configure the Velocity client at another time, or tap Open, as shown here, to start the client. The other install and deployment method is using a mobile device management platform, sometimes called an MDM. One such product is Wavelink's Avalanche. Since both Velocity and Avalanche are Wavelink products, the ability to install and configure Velocity is native to Avalanche, and it can be easily deployed. If you have another third-party MDM that is available to you, you can still deploy the Velocity client, but you will have to follow the general steps of building the Velocity package. With third-party MDMs, you will need to take a couple steps. Step 1, you will still need the Velocity APK file, and you will need to wrap the install file into a package or configuration that is native to the MDM you are using. The next step is to use the MDM to deploy the installation to the smart device. To use Velocity, either installation method will be acceptable. The use of an MDM is recommended when more than 5 devices are being used in the enterprise. Each Velocity client that wants to connect to an emulation session must be licensed. Velocity licensing is on a per-client basis, not on a per-connection basis. If a user wants to try out the client at any time, there is a demonstration mode available. If, after a demonstration period, a company decides to purchase licenses and work in full production mode, there are 2 types of licensing models. Manual licensing, which entails touching each and every device, and automated licensing, which uses the Wavelink license server. The next few slides will discuss the 3 different modes of licensing available. Velocity has a full functional demo mode available to our partners and their customers. It runs exactly as it would in production mode, except that it will time out after 30 minutes. The user may log in again and start the demo clock, but all the work they were doing before will be lost. For this reason, demo mode is not going to work well in a production environment. If you are running the Velocity client, it is easy to enter demo mode. Select the host profile you would like to use, and then tap on that host. A window will appear that will give you a choice of demo or add license. This window only appears on the device that lack a valid license key. Tap on demo. The Velocity client will now work in full production mode for up to 30 minutes. When the time limit has been exceeded, the connection lost window will appear. You will have to tap on OK to leave the host connection. There are two ways of entering a production license onto a Velocity client: manual and automated. Both require that a valid license has been issued for the Velocity client. You should have available to you the license email or document that holds all the licensing information. Entering a license using the manual mode requires that the administrator touch each and every device. When the Velocity client is running, select a host and tap the host profile that shows on the screen. When the software is unlicensed, a dialog box will appear to say the software is unlicensed and you have a choice of running in demo mode or adding a license. Here's where we want to tap on Add License to enter the license manually. The manual license window will appear. All the licensing information sent to you now must be entered into the manual license window. The information is case sensitive and all spaces and punctuation must be entered exactly as shown. It is standard practice to cut and paste from the document or the email as much as possible to make sure the data is entered exactly. The user number field is a value of 1 to the number listed in the user limit field. Start with the number 1, and for each subsequent client, make the user number 2, 3, 4, etc. up to the user limit. Take special attention to never duplicate a user number on 2 or more devices. This will invalidate the licenses on all the terminals with the duplicate user number, causing those clients to shut down. Only one terminal with the duplicate number can function at any one time. When finished entering all the data, tap Add License. If the license information entered was not done correctly or an expired license was used, the window will show an invalid license message. Your choice is to re-enter the license data and try again, or to tap Cancel and run in demo mode until a valid license is obtained. If all license information is valid, a connection to the host is attempted. Once the license is manually entered into the smart device, the connection to any future host will be seamless. You should never see the applet to select demo mode or add a license. The Client License Server is an application that provides licenses to ruggedized and smart devices that are using Wavelink's terminal emulation, industrial browser, or Velocity clients. The licenses are stored on a central or reachable PC and therefore can be automatically distributed to any device client that sends out a request. The application is a free software download from the Wavelink download site, and multiple license servers are valid on an enterprise network. The centralized depository of licenses allows for automation of the licensing process and helps stop the duplication of licenses that can happen in the manual licensing environment. To access the license server, browse to the Wavelink Downloads page from www.wavelink.com. Direct your viewing to the right-hand side drop-down window titled Product Software Downloads. Select Emulation License Server. You have the option of 32-bit or 64-bit versions that depend on the Windows OS that will be running the license server. This module will not go into depth about the license server. Wavelink has an e-learning module dedicated to the installation and configuration of the license server. There is also an in-depth document on the subject available on the Downloads page. Execute the Client License Server and go to the Licenses tab. From that screen, click on the option Add New License. The license data entry screen appears. The license data received from Wavelink or your reseller is exactly the same for manual entry and for the automated license server process. Enter all the license data. Click on the Add New License box to create the valid license. The Velocity client will send out a broadcast looking for the license server, or the license server address can be configured in the host profile, which we will discuss later. If the client finds a valid license, the device will be licensed, and you should never again see the applet to select demo mode or add a license mode as long as the license is valid on the device. Once the Velocity client has been installed, the Velocity icon will appear on the desktop. When you are ready to connect and/or configure the client, just tap on the Velocity icon. There is some configuration that needs to be done to actually use the Velocity client. This section will discuss how to create new host profiles and give them the minimum connectivity settings to get started, how to edit existing host profiles, how to delete host profiles, and lastly, how to connect and disconnect host profile sessions. More advanced settings will be discussed in the Advanced Client Tools module of the Velocity training course. When the device user executes the Velocity client, the initial client window displays a list of available host profiles. The user selects the host he wants to connect with, and the Velocity client uses the host profile settings to connect to the defined host. We will now discuss how to create a host profile. To start, tap on the plus sign in the top right corner of the initial host list screen to add a host profile. The Edit Host Profile screen will appear. The key to the record stored for the host profile is the profile name. When creating a host, the first step is to give the host profile a name. Before you can make a connection with a Velocity client, at a minimum, you must know the host IP address, the host port, and the host emulation type. These are considered the basic configuration options when creating a new host profile. The host address is the address of the host system or the immediate gateway managing connections to the host system. Velocity must know where to connect, so at this point, enter the host name or numeric IP address of where you want the client to connect. The host port is the TCP port number on which the host system is listening for emulation requests. By default, the port is set to 23. When Use SSH or Use SSH tunneling is selected, the default port is changed to 22. For this connection, the port was left at the default port 23. The host emulation type is the type of session required to connect to your host. Your choices are 3270, 5250, VT220, or Xterm. You can only select one host type per session, and the connection configuration options may change dynamically depending on the host type selected. To select a host emulation type, there is a drop-down menu that is selected in the lower right corner of the type field. From that menu, all emulation types will be available for the selection. For this connection, the emulation type needed is VT220. Once selected from the menu, the new emulation type is placed into the host emulation type field. Once the settings have been completed, we must save the newly created host profile. To save our basic configuration, type on the Android back button on the device. Tap Yes on the Confirm Changes dialog. The new host profile is now displayed in alphabetical order on the initial Velocity client screen. Tap the new host profile Acme Warehouse Systems and you will see the application execute in the device window. Changes can be made to existing host profiles using the Edit Host Profile dialog. From the initial host profile screen, tap and hold on the profile you would like to edit. From the Modify Host Profile dialog, tap Edit. Make all your needed changes. Save the edited profile by tapping on the Android back button on the device and then tap Yes on the Confirm Changes dialog. If a host profile is no longer needed, the profile can be deleted. From the initial host profile screen, tap and hold on the profile you would like to delete. From the Modify Host Profile dialog, tap Delete. The device will return to the initial host profile screen and the profile you selected has now been removed. Once you have all your host profiles configured, you are now ready to connect to a host. From the initial host profile screen, tap on the desired host profile session. The session will connect based on the parameters of the host profile. Once a user is finished with the session, it is easy to disconnect. From any connected host session screen, click on the Client Main Menu button as shown here on the lower right side of the screen. If multiple sessions are connected, just click on the session you would like to disconnect. This will leave all of the remaining sessions open. You will return back to the Client Main Menu and you will need to select the session you would like to have focus. If there is only one session, the device will return to the initial host profile screen and a new connection must be created to move forward. The user is ready to close the Velocity client. The task is accomplished using the Velocity client main menu. From any connected host session, click on the Client Main Menu button on the lower right side of the screen. No matter how many sessions you have open, it is possible to close the Velocity client. Tap Exit. The Velocity client will be stopped and you will return to the home screen of the smart device. Thank you for listening to Installation and Configuration, a module of the Wavelink e-learning training course on Velocity and specifically the Velocity client. You are now ready to move on to the next module. Wavelink is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Landis Corporation, and it has offices around the world, so there will always be a convenient office near you. If you would like any more information, please contact your Wavelink sales representative or email us at the address sales@wavelink.com.